Well, joining me now, Queensland Senator James McGrath. James, I think the politicisation of the border issues by Labor premiers such as McGowan, Palaszczuk and Andrews has been an absolute disgrace. I think it's put the country back, and I think the Prime Minister, has finally decided to intervene. I don't know why he didn't do this 3 months ago.
The Prime Minister has been trying to work cooperatively with the premiers through the National Cabinet. But what's happened, especially since the disgrace that is Victoria, and I'm going to call it out, it is a disgrace what's happened in Victoria in relation to how that government handled the quarantine issue, is that in Queensland, Palaszczuk has just gone so low and so just, I'm going to call it grubby politics. Absolute grubby politics, how she's been treating the border issue in terms of trying to create division in Queensland, but also create division along those border communities. And I speak as someone, I live on the Southern Downs, I live just outside of Warwick. It's pretty common for people, the border sort of doesn't really mean that much in a way because people live and work either side. But the way she's just said, if you, in New South Wales, you can't use Queensland hospitals, I mean, that is just a low, low act.
James, there was a piece in The Australian and it referred to premiers as being power hungry, that they were on trips. Is that the sense you're getting?
Oh, totally. Because what's happened is that the premiers have come used to doing these daily press conferences and have become these little mini dictators where the media are just lapping up their words. The oppositions in WA and in Queensland and Victoria aren't really getting a word in just because of the domination of coronavirus as an issue. So they're getting used to this sort of almost one-party rule. The Premier is the grand poobah of Queensland, and the power's gone to their heads. And in Queensland, we're facing the situation where Labor have been in power for 25 out of the last 30 years, so they've almost become the natural party of government. They're so used to winning elections, so they've got that arrogance to begin with, but they're using coronavirus as an alibi to cover up all their mistakes and all the dodgy stuff they've got up to. So if you try and raise an issue, we can't talk about that because coronavirus.
COVID,
hang on, it's just wrong how they're governing at the moment.
Well, they're in a bit of strife, James. We saw that story today. Michael Rabbar from the CFMEU has taken the gloves off. He's referred to Jackie Trad as a dud politician. He's said that the Labor Party in Queensland is getting away from its traditional roots, blue-collar workers. It's abandoned them on Cross River Rail. It's abandoned them on coal. It's abandoned them on coal-fired power stations. And this is a real test for the Labor Party, James. I mean, Swan and Albanese, if they're not careful, this will completely split the entire ALP.
Oh, look, the union has. I don't like agreeing with unions, but I think that they've belled the cat when it comes to Jackie Trad and the modern Labor Party. Yeah, the Labor Party comes from Queensland. There's a certain tree in a certain town, in Queensland where the Labor Party was born. Well, that tree died a few years ago. Yeah, exactly. That tree died a few years ago, and I think the Labor Party is dying as a party that stands up for the worker and the working family. We saw that during the last federal election. There is a reason why the LNP holds 23 out of 30 seats in Queensland. It's because the Labor Party, they're focusing on the latte set, they're focusing on the left wing rather than focusing on the real issues. The last election in Queensland wasn't about coal, it was about jobs. That's what people voted for. And the modern Labor Party in Queensland do not get that because they're so focused on almond lattes in West End, because that's Jackie Trad's world, rather than focusing on those of us who might order a pretty weak cappuccino in Mackay or Rocky or wherever it may be.
Listen, James, don't knock those almond cappuccinos or whatever they are, almond lattes. Hey, quickly, before we go, I know you keep a very close eye on US politics. Pence made a really good speech in the last 24 hours. I'm not sure if the Republicans can win in the first Tuesday in November, but I get a sense that things are just slightly turning. What do you think?
Oh, totally. What you're seeing in America at the moment is the classic fight between the noise and the quiet. And what the Republicans are very smartly doing are focusing on the quiet, and that's the disquiet that people have about law and order in many of the states, especially where there are Democrat governors or Democrat mayors, and you've got the defund the police movement going on. And that is why the Republicans very smartly had a number of leading black politicians up on stage, talking about law and order issues. I wouldn't be writing Trump off. He's very, he's cunning as a rat, that guy, and he will make sure that the issues they focus on, law and order, is what the majority of the people, regardless of their colour, that's what they'll be voting on, safety.
Senator James McGrath, always great to see you.
Anytime. Have a good night. Thank you.